Hey guys, Crypto Sunday, and everything's looking rather bright and green. I'm not sure it's quite as green as is showing on here. Sort of prices starting to conflict a little bit between sources, but this is showing 47,000 in the green, about 13%. I don't know. I think it's probably more sort of 395, but doesn't make a sort of huge amount of difference unless you're actually coming to sell. Yeah, things are looking up across the board. Ethereum doing a hell of a lot better than everything else, although it's underperformed for a long while, obviously. But yeah, let's have a look at some news. So a strong coin shares report. We kind of knew that was coming. A solid 2 billion on the nose in inflows. Should get another one tomorrow. Looking at recent performance. Looking at by asset. So we got 149 million of Ethereum on top of the inflows into Bitcoin. Very little into the multi-asset. It's gone quiet again. Solana 6 million. Not too bad, but considering assets under management, it's not all that much. But XRP still outperforming it, 10 million, so that's 1% of assets under management inflow. Has been doing a lot more than that. A little bit into Sui, a little bit into Cardano, nothing much into the rest. 6 million into short Bitcoin. There's only 87 million in total assets in those ETFs. So yeah, that's what 8% of assets under management in short Bitcoin into this week. So people are thinking this has got a bit of downside to it. And by country, a little bit of a mixed bag really. Sweden and Brazil with small outflows, but quite sizable inflow into Canada, Germany, and Switzerland. So yeah, nothing sort of too breaking news about that. Looking at this week's flows, we sort of had slightly less than last week. So yeah, Monday sort of got a fairly big, again, positive from BlackRock and negative from everyone else across the board. Some yellows, some zeros rather, but everyone that had a move was negative except BlackRock, 530 million. So yeah, we got that, and then 3 days of small inflows from BlackRock, but sort of a couple of 100 million inflows and an 85 million outflow, and then Friday we sort of come back slightly, 350 million into BlackRock, and not too much out from the others, 321 million inflow. So yeah, not quite as strong as last week, but still, still positive. What is that? Sort of 1 billion, 900 million of inflow. So still good. So Ethereum, sort of despite the positive performance, hasn't seen much of anything just yet. Net outflow for the week, it looks like. Complete zero on Monday. That was bank holiday for us, but I don't think it was for the US. So I think that was just a surprise zero. And then 3 days of net outflow, 17, 21, 16. They're not huge numbers, but they were certainly zero. And then a zero across the board except BlackRock, 17 million. So a small positive. But yeah, considering Ethereum's move over the week, I thought we might have seen a little bit more into the ETFs. Maybe it means it's Joe Public buying, or it's institutions buying, other Ethereum outside the ETFs. And of course, the weekly MicroStrategy buy, it wasn't sort of all that big compared to some of the previous buys. We've had some 5-figure Bitcoin buys. But we had 1,895 for $180 million. So 95,167 per Bitcoin. So I think third week in a row of him buying, or his buy being below the current price when I'm recording the video. So yeah, not too bad. Makes a nice change from sort of constantly buying the top. This obviously didn't really do much to the average price because it's not a huge buy. 68,550 per Bitcoin, so still pretty good. It's sort of worth noting that I think this is their enormous advantage over all of these other companies sort of trying to jump on the bandwagon. Basically, they're going to be, acquiring Bitcoin sort of at an average of over 100,000 most likely, where in the bear market potentially MicroStrategy sort of have a little bit more defense, being lower per Bitcoin. But we'll have to see. We don't want to be still here in the bear market. So, speaking of MicroStrategy competitors, we have yet another one, Strive, headed by Vivek Ramaswamy, the sort of former part of Doge, which seems to have collapsed, with sort of Elon Musk saying he's leaving, and then basically not achieving a huge amount of anything, sort of $100 billion, I think, which, $100 billion is a lot of money, but when they were promising so much more, that's it's not great. But he's doing a reverse merger with a very, very small NASDAQ listed company, it looks like. The way a lot of these companies seem to sort of sneak in, a little bit like a SPAC, really. And plans to transition it into a Bitcoin treasury company. They want to straight away issue approximately 1 billion in equity and debt and use the proceeds to accumulate Bitcoin. So as I say, if they're starting to do this, they haven't, listed the company or, done the reverse merger yet. So if they start that in the next few weeks and then issue debt and then buy Bitcoin, they could be starting to buy at, could be 110,000 or more in Bitcoin. And that is risky, I would say, going into the bear market, unless they just do stock. They could potentially, if they say equity and debt, they could maybe just issue shares, and then there's no liquidation price at all if people are willing to buy it. It's got his name behind it. He still seems to be a prominent part of the government. Looks like he's running for a sort of state election rather than being sort of on the cabinet of the government. But yeah, interesting. So we've got them and 21, the sort of SoftBank, Tether-backed company, trying to be sort of competitors to MicroStrategy, but all US competitors. It's sort of noteworthy. We're not getting companies around the world doing this, aside from your sort of Meta Planet and people like that in Japan, smallish companies. So yeah, see if there's demand, even more demand for yet another company to do it. So this may be part of the reason behind the recent Ethereum move. They've had a reasonably large upgrade, the Pectra upgrade. Doesn't look like it's done anything drastic to sort of the function, but it's certainly some upgrades apparently, lowers fees, and has got some usage going. The ultrasound money thing is saying it's sort of gone deflationary, but the chart is sort of not quite updating, so we'll maybe have that next week if they've updated that to the new upgrade. But yeah, it's sort of looking good. A lot of people are saying that this helps Ethereum, but doesn't really solve the underlying problem, that it's still based on layer 2s doing a huge amount of volume and then sort of posting those overall transactions to Ethereum, and then those fees would go back to Ethereum. It's all sort of a little bit pyramid, and not a pyramid scheme, but pyramid-like, where sort of the fees rise to the top, and it's complicated basically. So yeah, they're saying investors need reassurance that the network's progress, whether through deposits or layer 2 growth, translates into clear benefits. You need all of these apps doing a huge amount of volume and then posting those transactions to ETH, and presumably being happy to pay higher fees for that security for the final transaction. But it feels like they've sort of built, you know, trillions and trillions worth of capacity basically without it actually being there. So you're sort of building. It's like that if you build it, they will come, but they've built a massive amount and now need a lot of people to come. And until they do, they're not really successful yet. But that's their plan, and they have obviously the enormous roadmap out till 2029, where they say everything will be fixed. But 4 years is a hell of a lot of, well, it's a lifetime in crypto, so we'll have to see. And the inevitable printy, we got more news from China on stimulus measures. We've had a weakening in the dollar. It doesn't seem to have translated into a weaker Chinese yuan, so it's sort of somewhat pegged, and it looks like they're partly going down with it. But they've sort of seen fit to enact a few stimulus measures. Cutting the 7-day repurchase rate by 10 basis points, 1.4% from 1.5. Central bank will lower the reserve requirement ratio, which determines the amount of cash banks must hold in reserves, by 50 basis points. A lot of people sort of don't focus on this sort of thing quite so much, restrictions on banks. The US sort of has this. Certainly, and I would imagine the Fed are considering that as well. So they're saying that would unleash an additional 1 trillion yuan of liquidity, about $138 billion, which is, quite a bit. So they also pushed the sort of government-backed housing lender to lower rates by 25 basis points. So 5-year loans down to 2.6% from 2.85. Although, Chinese housing, I think, is still a bit of an unpopular turd in the swimming pool, basically. You've got empty houses that nobody wants to live in, half-finished houses, and yeah. It's not great. I do think this sort of idea of people buying an unfurnished house and leaving it empty and hoping that it goes up is obviously a little bit of a Ponzi scheme. But yeah, they're doing that, lowering the amount of cash that auto financing firms must hold in reserves to 0 from the current 5%. So yeah, they're wanting more cars, it looks like. It's sort of noted that they're doing this piecemeal, small but often, I suppose you would say, stimulus, which is unusual. And obviously we've got US meeting China over the weekend. Somebody posted that yesterday that the Chinese delegate left abruptly without reason, and then sort of an hour or so later said, "Oh, they've returned. It looks like it was just a lunch break." I think the dangers of reading too much on Twitter from sort of maybe not the best sources. But yeah, see if anything comes of that. And a lot of analysts are expecting further stimulus, just to keep with this sort of small but often cuts to interest rates and reserve requirements and things, but saying that may not come until after the Fed resumes its rate cuts. So at the moment, it's looking like August at the earliest. So just having a look at DeFi Llama, you may not sort of not understand quite where the bullishness has come for Ethereum. Obviously, people are, screaming about a rise in total value locked. It's up, billions. What is that? 30 billion nearly. But that is a rise in Ethereum price. As I always say, you should flick to in Ethereum terms, and that has seen quite a steep drop. We sort of in the 64, 66 million Ethereum range for sort of all of April, and then in the last sort of 4 days, it's dropped to 56 million ETH from 65. So that's quite a drop. And looking at stable coins, if it ever loads, it is showing 124 billion, but you notice that sort of hasn't really been going up at all. It was 124 billion, 123 billion in February. So not really sure what exactly is causing this. Chain fees don't exactly look anything special. Chain revenue is sort of at a low. App revenue has seen a little bit of a spike. Obviously nothing like 2022, but it sort of seems to have these very short-term up days, and it's sort of been relatively low, 650 ETH in a day, and it was sort of 700, 800 when Ethereum was much lower. So yeah, bit of a strange one on that. Looking at Solana, again, USD value has rocketed up. Total value locked in Solana terms, sort of sticking around the highs, really, same as it's been for about a month, 117, 18 million Solana. Stable coins, I think I saw it took quite a bit of a down move, down to 11.8 billion, maybe moved somewhere else. I think we were seeing Tron is smashing it at the moment, back gaining stable coin amounts. So fees on Solana, sort of not looking anything too special really. Fees and revenue sort of all a bit low. App revenue kind of picking up. It was lower, quite a bit lower in March, so it's up a bit, but nothing like where it was before. So yeah, the price move could potentially have got a little bit ahead of itself. Looking at Tron just to see where we are with stable coins. It looks like it's going sharply up again. It was sort of relatively steady at about 63 billion up until the middle of March, and then has just been rocketing up and up and up to 73.7 billion now. So yes, very strong. And overall stable coins, we are at the grand total of 242 billion. So new all-time high reached. We were at sort of 235 back in March. That was a bit of a high, and yeah, up to 243. So very strong. Just checking in on global liquidity then. The one that I was using seems to have broken slightly, so I'm sort of trying a couple of others. They have this sort of relatively strange looking one, which does seem to tie up sometimes and over the long term with price. And I sort of thought, oh, that's interesting. And you sort of play with the settings a little bit, and you noticed west dominated and east dominated. So I guess this is sort of putting a lot of the liquidity into Eastern currency terms. So Chinese yuan, potentially Indian and that sort of thing. And that one seems to sort of tie up quite a lot tighter. Maybe this is Eastern focus is the way to look, and that is sort of topped out in 2021, bottomed sort of around the time of Bitcoin in 2022. Obviously, everyone puts it down to FTX and Luna and everything else, but you did also have global macro issues as well. Rocketed up in 2023, maybe ahead of Bitcoin, and is now on the sort of most recent few months pretty much at all-time highs. Monday and Tuesday it was sort of reached a new high, has slightly pulled back, but is quite a bit higher than all of April. You saw sort of just after Liberation Day a big spike lower and came straight back. So yeah, things all looking pretty good on the liquidity front. And then coins for the week. So yes, it's come down back to 3.95. That looks a little bit more realistic. So Bitcoin is up 8% for the week. Obviously, provided a great deal of the gains. That's done well. Solana, though, 18.6%. That is pretty good. Seeing a little bit of life in the NFTs, but yeah, still probably don't really have exactly that as a total. Need the NFTs to pick up. But Ethereum looking pretty strong. All of my Ethereum is just sat there at 34.8% for the week on Ethereum. So that is the outperformer of the week, which I never thought I would say for well, for the last few months at least. Chainlink 16.5% green. That's doing well. Helium 5.8%. Not quite so well. That's the one of the underperformers. Jito 27%. That's doing well. Radium 16%. Metaplex 3%. So that is the lowest performer for the week. And Honey up 24%. So that's doing a little bit better, but certainly these smaller coins are all over the place at the moment, and they've still got a long way to go to catch up to where they were. Except Helium, 6% down on Helium. That's held up quite well. Again, I did look at my coins that I sold to buy these Solana sort of ecosystem coins, the sort of Power Ledger and Basic Attention Token, ICP and that sort of thing. And a lot of them since I sold are down, 30, 40%. I think a 50% possibly on Gala, I think it was. So yeah, the red here is replicated in the coins that I sold as well. And maybe if you throw Helium into the mix, I might be slightly up and slightly better off having made the switch. So yeah, it's obviously not gone particularly well with things like Radium and Honey in there, but yeah, potentially positive going forward. So leave your thoughts in comments below, how you guys are doing, if you've had a lovely week with some of this move. Are you still in Ethereum? And like and subscribe. See you soon.